Hi, video 11. Good God. So I'm gonna do this video just like I'm doing it for myself. I'm just talking, and I was walking around today, did some reading, was reading Biology of Transcendence, and I wanted to, because I was thinking that I was going to read some of the chapter out loud in this video log, because there are some points in there that I feel like he's articulated very well, that I have my own experiences with, but can't quite articulate as well yet. And I decided not to do that because they're really long and kind of dense. Yeah, it's a lot to read, but I will do my best at sharing my own experiences, because the articulation is that struggle to articulate is literally the creation of consciousness. And I'm aware of the feeling, I'm aware of the state, I'm aware of the physical, emotional, mental, energetic experience of that phenomenon. And so to be aware of it doesn't necessarily mean that it's fully distinguished. Meaning that, like, in order to have an experience disappear, it has to be fully distinguished. And so to create that consciousness around these experiences, for me, allows that to disappear, like that struggle or that desire to share an experience, which is a huge drive for me, to share my experiences, hence these videos, because I think that there's a lot of value in that. Like, there's a lot of value in people sharing authentically, because so much of our experience has been enculturated and is, and a lot of times, in contention with our natural states. For example, going back to the sitting in silence thing that I said that I would extrapolate on in a later video, to me, meditation is our most natural state. And guys like Adyashanti that talk about meditation, that teach meditation, I got the term sitting in silence from him, because to say that we are meditating, you know, like, oh, I'm going to meditate, is to already be behind what is actually happening. Meaning, like, that the quieting of the mind is not necessary to I've got myself in a bit of a pickle here. Let me see if I can get out of it. Because this is what happens when you are trying to create consciousness. For me, there's this feeling place that it's like, is it resonant with truth, or is it something that I'm making up? And both are okay. Both are, neither are any better. prefer that it be resonant with truth, because I don't want to just be making up a bunch of shit and expecting people to take my word for it. Please don't do that, especially if you have disagreements or if you have clarity or things for constructive edification and all of that. I totally invite that, completely encourage it, and I think that there's something really valuable too about the wrestling around in that realm, so long as both people are respectful of each other and their views. But I think that you can completely respectfully disagree, and I invite that because I'm learning too. But that's just like one of the traps that you can kind of get into when you're really trying to, let me rephrase that. That's a trap that I find myself in, and that if I find myself in it, bouncing back from it really takes some practice, like some recovery. Basically, so I would say it this way. So to me, meditation is our most natural state. The mind, incessant churning, getting that to stop is not necessary. Simply observing that is occurring is resting inside of that meditative state, resting inside of our most natural state, to be fundamentally present, like let me see if I can drop into that experience now to demonstrate through beingness instead of intellect. And it's literally a letting go of the doing. You know, it's like speaking from this space, I don't know what I'm going to say. And a lot of times, and I've found myself inside of these videos trying to speak from intellect, which is totally fine, and that's part of like the wrestling that I do. It's part of my own growing and developing and edification of my own consciousness. But there is the equally important side of it, where it is like resting inside of that. What I would distinguish, and what Joseph Schulten Pierce distinguishes, is between the relationship between intellect and intelligence. So it's like intelligence to me is resting inside of that meditative state. Simply belonging, simply being, simply observing, simply sharing, simply expressing, simply, all from this sort of wellspring of nothingness. But to talk about, so yeah, that's the best I can do with that one. Thanks for being with me as I untangle that, or just set it down and walk away. The enculturated self, that was one of the chapters. If you consider that most of who we are, at least most people that I've ran into, a lot of who you are and a lot of who we are is who we, in terms of self-image, is enculturated. We are conditioned. And none of us have really been able to, as far as I know, even those that are running from it or have tried to separate themselves from it, me being one of those people back in 2012, they're still bound to their own enculturation. And that is like so much of who we are is a byproduct of our early environment and the impulses and stimuli and meaning making that we inherited and created right now. I'm dealing with my own version, my own, like, you know, so the energetic experience just came up. I noticed the stress response in my body. And again, this is processing out loud. This is what it looks like. This is what happens, or this is one thing that can happen inside of discovering where you're sourcing yourself from. And right now I'm sourcing myself from I should be saying something better. I'm not saying it well enough. Who's saying that? Most likely, as far as I've uncovered, is here, let me do this differently, because that doesn't quite matter in this. But I'm trying to process it as I'm sharing it out loud, and sometimes that's kind of difficult to do. Plus I'm driving. So and it's even like just noticing that, you know? I'm trying to illustrate what it looks like. But there's a different way that I can do it, and the way that I'm going to do it now is just noticing that experience, saying, okay, I see that I feel this way, and become present to that. Like present to the anxiety, present to, you know, and I can look at that, you know, like, and I will. But just being with that experience. The ion body presence, the breath, all of these things are tools. Like, in utilizing them this way, it becomes a tool to transcend those fear, stressed states. But not in the sense that it gets rid of it, in the sense that it integrates it. So what I'm doing is I'm just focusing on my feet. I'm focusing on the weight of my body in this seat. And I'm just breathing through and letting that experience pass a little bit. It's like I just focus on something that's concrete, meaning my body, my breath. That's something that's repetitive. It's something that's just right there. And then I allow the cortisol to make its course through my body. And just don't resist, you know, like I'm just like letting go of the resistance to it and letting it do its thing while I just stay present.